I'm Claire Blotter, a longtime California poet in the schools, excited to be meeting today with 4 new poet teachers from Marin and Sonoma counties. We're collaborating on lesson plans around their original poems to meet the emotional and creative needs of elementary and high school students challenged in the last 3 years by an unprecedented pandemic. CalPoets is a nonprofit teaching organization which has flourished for over 50 years because it emphasizes community and collaboration. We share outstanding lessons and best practices with each other, poet teachers from all over California. We strengthen and adapt these shared lessons to meet the needs of our students. However, we've never yet, as far as I know, gathered poet teachers together as today for the purpose of collaborating on lessons from the first seed idea and poem to fully evolved teaching plans.
So this poem is titled A Deeper Pretending, and it starts with a quote. Try to write a bad poem before breakfast. William Stafford, as quoted by Naomi Shihab Nye. Okay, I'll try, but I have never been much good at being bad. No, it's not like that. It's not that I am good at everything, or think I am. It is a deeper pretending, a tacit avoidance of things not yet known or learned, a nodding along sometimes when people talk about that book I should have read by now. It started early. You're so quiet, they told me, so good at knowing things, so smart. That's good. They told me so often, it's all I thought I was. And I would ask students to write down a list of things that they had been told they were or weren't during their lives, because it can be just as damaging to hear you're not smart, you're not good, you're not funny, anything like that, and to think about how those messages had affected them during their lives. And then to write a poem where they confess one of those things to the reader. And I would also want them to write down a couple different metaphors for how that thing has made them feel during their lives. Is it the air blustering in their ears every time they walk somewhere? And then to encourage them to be vulnerable at a level that feels comfortable to them.
I really liked the poem, and I saw it with older students, but I thought maybe even 6th grade on up. Another idea, I think you could do maybe 2 classes with this even, a poem about all the things that you're not.
I just had an idea for exploring, having students explore writing in the second person, addressing themselves as you instead of I. That's almost helped me actually get out a lot of deep kind of inner feelings without directly addressing myself.
Yeah, I think the vulnerability issue is really huge, because in some of my classes of, say, 4th, 5th, 6th graders, they're very shy. They don't want to share their poems, but they will do it, like Elizabeth said, one-on-one with another student. So exploring how to get them more open in the class with the poem is a great idea. And thanks for that poem, yeah.
I sit down on the floor so that they can look at me in the eye, and that was really helpful with 2nd graders this year.
Just look around until you notice something that catches your interest and put that in your poem. And they really love doing that.
I chose this poem because it's about nature, animals, and I think nature is one of our great teachers. Jackson's nose smells every green thing, quivering nostrils, each vibrate a different tune. The left side classical, the right side hip hop. His body sways to the blue road in between. He doesn't mind there's no sound in space. The smells of green enter his nose in octaves, arpeggios, bump by clef signs. Birds at a riff, black-brown earth, a gong of respect humming. He looks at wires in the sky, hears his voice repeated. Spacewalking with Bach, worms watch from their green trail. So, yeah, the personification, of course, of Jackson, my cat, I just watched him for a few minutes, and he looks up at the sky, and I just imagine that he's a musical cat, to make it about anything, music, or maybe the animal is a sports hero or a spaceman, or just, I want them to use their imagination and metaphor, and if they want to, a personification to give that animal more specific superhuman characteristics, I guess.
Terrific. What great sound. I was thinking about playing it, maybe even playing some jazzy music beforehand and having the students imagine, place, color, take notes. You have so much color in that poem. I thought of as synesthesia, I think it's called, when people hear music and see a color.
It was so packed with sensory information, and that was a really beautiful part of listening to the poem, was just feeling, this swirl of color and sound coming from it. And I love the idea of writing from the perspective of a pet or an animal. And one cool invitation that I've used when I've taught tracking with students is to, if you're tracking a dog and looking on the ground at dog tracks, to actually get down and move like the animal, to think, what was it sniffing at? What was it looking at? So that could be a fun thing, is, say, lie down on the ground like a cat, and what do you notice? What kind of things stick out from that perspective?
Telling the kids to bring a picture of any animal they really love. So if they don't have a pet, they still could have an animal that they bring that they feel inspired by.
Some of these poems really welcome 2 or 3 lessons. And I'm going to be really excited in the spring and maybe hear a few of the students' poems too. Today's the final convening, and we're going to maybe read some student poems and share what we might do to extend the lesson and what happened in the classroom so that we all can learn from it.
How can a simple thing be precious? No gem nor rare, simply made of pine, no longer than a school ruler, but a third as wide. Well traveled, a woodshop copy of every Mother's Day gift. Through the years, the grocery lists unfurled. How did such a simple thing become a compass and the North Star of my every home? So the point of the poem for me when I brought it to the classroom was for the students to think of something that was valuable to them, but not important in anyone else's eyes. Something simple but valuable. I brought paper bags with funny little things, and by table they made clues, and they were so into it, describing. But so on one level it was really good, but on the other level it was challenging because it became more like a riddle. And they would rather stay at the fun level of riddle and not go deeper. So what I would change, I don't know, I was going to look for suggestions today too. What I ended up doing was I had them write a second draft with more prompts and with my questions on the first draft. And I asked them to write a second draft and kind of force them to go deeper, which they did. This is a first draft from Shelby. She wrote, "It was a gift given on a cold day. I never take it off. It hangs around all day. It looks at me and shows its face." So when I got that, she had written about 3 fairly short, almost riddles. So I wrote back to her, "Very nice personification. How long have you had this? Who was the giver? Does it have a story? How do you feel when you wear it? Choose one." So then she chose that one to do the second draft on. She calls it Friend Anniversary. Something that's only mine when I was only 9. It was a special time, makes me feel like she's only mine. We are all so close. She gave me this to play a game. It's soft and smooth, like a book. But is it? I said to her after the second draft, well done, can you add this to your first draft? Because I think altogether it would be good.
And that concrete object, I think, is so powerful to have it in your hand and share it for kids. Or even taking things around the classroom, what's the story, and making up the story. It's so interesting how I have Brian's feedback. Brian, who has COVID and can't be with us, he gave me his feedback, and so much of what both of you got out of your lessons is reflected in his lesson too.
How can I get them to brainstorm more freely? It seems like they want to just have one idea and attach to it, and I want them to open big first.
I like them to be able to hear each other's ideas and examples and kind of piggyback off. Even the kids, they know this like hand signal for like, I think it's something like this, but the
Like
teachers
this?
taught them. Yeah, it's like when they agree with what.
Yes.
It's when they
It's
agree with
this.
what the person said. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So that happens a lot, and I'm like, oh wow, that's so great. Like you're really
Oh, nice.
sort of bouncing off each other already.
And I know you probably do this, having, read a poem, then underline, and then share your favorite line. But then asking, why does that work in the poem? What makes that line stand out? And a lot of times it's because it's a particular memory of the poet, or it shows how they feel about things. There are certain lines that are more thoughtful.
To make a dance, burn the tip of your lips when they kiss melting chocolate. Flood yourself in the fire that breathes the dream you wish but never dare to fight. To make a dance, crunch your fingers solid against graham cracker crust. Bite through layers of molten earth and wipe off the browned embers like dissolved stars. I actually adapted this into a really simple Diamante poem, which is structured with a noun followed by 2 adjectives, followed by 6 verbs, followed by 2 adjectives, and then a noun. To really sort of capture the essence, the sort of physical or physicality and physical essence of words in order to work towards actually making the moves and making the movements. And so they could be choreographed together. Spring, sunny, sweet, planting, blooming, swaying, flying, singing, laying, warm, clear, sky. So that was sort of a simplistic example. The kids got a lot more active. Some of them were even, going down on the floor. Some of them were going upside down. We had to actually I had to give some sort of ground rules at the beginning to, be safe and sort of adhere to each other's space. But I think a lot of these kids, they really want to use their bodies.
Yeah.
They're sitting down like for 6 hours a day. So having a chance to actually show someone that you are spring or that you're gardening or that you're swimming is like the most magical thing, especially at 9 in the morning. We actually started in a circle, and we started right away. I assigned movements to words. And then I was like, okay, we're going to do spring. And everyone repeated after me, spring. And then we moved on to the next word, sunny. And then we moved on to sweet. And
Okay,
then
so you would say a word and students would do movements?
say a word and I do a movement with it and
That's
everyone
great
followed.
to show first.
Yeah, so then I started asking people to contribute. Okay, what do you think a movement for planting could be? Or blooming. So give some suggestions. And so it kind of was an accumulative poem. We started with spring and then we went all the way through And
You mean the seasons? Through the seasons or just through spring?
no, through the Diamante poem of spring.
Okay. So you wrote an example Diamante poem?
Yes.
With spring.
With spring.
Great.
And I had, students contribute their ideas for movements that would go with the words. So that's how we started. And then I said practice doing it without saying the word. So first they practice saying the word, and then they practice without saying anything.
That's great.
So it was just like a fluid dance.
I love your idea. And moving. We need to move. So
Yeah.
that's just so good that you have incorporated it. I'm going to steal it.
Oh, please do.
I tell my students, good poets steal.
I'm going to ask you to share something, try something new. And when you try something new, you're going to make a mistake sometimes, or you'll write a line and it won't be as good as the other line, and you go, I can't write poems. So these are the 3 things you do. Number 1, you take a breath. Number 2, you try again. And number 3, which is my favorite, is you be kind to yourself. You guys are so kind to each other, but if you make a mistake, be really kind. If you write a line that isn't as good that you think as the other lines, just try again. We're here to make mistakes. We want that so that we can try again and learn. So kindness is a really big thing. And that we respect each other's ideas and feelings, even if they're different than ours. So I love those. That was part of a symposium, CalPoet symposium on trauma, working with trauma students, traumatized students. I just want to say what an honor and what a privilege it's been to listen to people, our ideas, and what a great thing it is to help each other on a specific lesson. And I've been in CalPoets for about 15 years, and I've never done this with a group of people. Take an in-process lesson and really say to each other, your feedback's valuable. You come from a different perspective than I do. And my students are in different perspectives than I am. And to be able to just take a space to share that.
I was so nervous before the October one. I thought, what am I doing? I'm bringing my poem, and who are these people? And I got good suggestions in October that helped me, and I've gotten more today. And I love talking about it, all of these. So thank you.